We're just gonna wait a few more minutes for people to join, and then I think we'll get started.
This is Brett, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Brett. It looks like people are coming on muted, so you might want to remind people. I mean, at least we want to, maybe some kind of a check-in thing, I guess. But is Sakar's not on yet?
No, I haven't seen him.
Oh.
Hey guys, Moses
okay,
is
well.
on.
Yeah, Moses, hey.
Moses, awesome to have you again.
No, truly sorry. It's been a lot of crazy projects coming through the pipeline, and even with all of what's going on, work doesn't slow down, and our numbers have been going out the charts.
Oh, well, you mean sales?
Yeah, because we support a lot of the essential services, and so a lot of defense contracts.
Awesome.
That's
yeah,
good.
They still don't stop. They don't slow down, and so we've gotten a lot of letters for essential services here recently from a lot of the contractors. So yeah, it's still super busy. Everyone still has to build bullets, you know.
Right, that's right.
That's good.
You okay with the agenda for tonight?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, awesome. I talked to Sakar 3 hours ago. He swore he was going to be on this call.
Hey, Michelle, good to see you.
Hi there.
So good to see you. Yeah, Michelle is our distinguished lecturer. Is an expert, you know, and author for X15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she just gave a wonderful talk January 30th. And Mike Adams Mike Adams and X15, and we also have an article from her in our March newsletter at X15.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's a professional speaker and professional author.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, welcome.
Yeah.
She'll have insights to some of our topics tonight, I guess.
Yeah, I believe so. She's a fantastic expert in the space program and in aerospace space program and you know, general aerospace defense.
It's good to see you, Ken.
Yeah, good to see you, Michelle. Thank you so much. So good to see you.
Yeah.
Who is the lady on your background? Who's the lady?
Hi.
No, it's not. I mean the picture, Michelle's picture.
It's Catherine Zeta-Jones. That's a Zorro poster from a long time ago.
I see.
Yeah.
Maybe that Navia will become like her.
There you go.
Oh yeah, I see.
Wow. Oh yeah, great poster.
Great. Oh, Steve, how are you?
That's
Steve.
okay. All right. Well, all right. I'll tell him you're dialing in.
Okay. Yeah, Steve is our if you look at the March newsletter, he wrote the article about the Cold War Museum in Culver City.
I think Sakar's about to check in. I just had to ring his chain, so
yeah,
hopefully he's going to get started in a minute.
Yeah, we need him to start it.
Well, otherwise I'll start it.
Okay.
No, give him another minute.
Okay.
This was somewhat his idea. He's the chair of the chapter.
No. We're waiting for him, you know.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, Ken is the wizard behind the IT wizard behind all this.
Oh, thank you. You're also a wizard too.
It's possible a few people might have problems dialing in.
Okay, I think Shekar is in.
Yeah. Everybody's, I think, defaulted to mute being on, Ken. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if they check in, they hope to remember to unmute. I mean, which I forgot and had to do. So
okay,
that may at least they can listen.
Okay, yeah, they can hear. You know, just if they want to speak, they need to let us know.
Right. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
A little bit louder. Oh, wow, nice picture. Taj Mahal.
Hi, sorry. I'm not in India. I'm using the virtual virtual thing that they have.
Okay, Sakar, the audio has been ready, so let's go.
My apologies for late dial-in. I was actually working. We started about a week ago. We started doing this online event because a lot of people actually asked us that they are actually at home with their children and they have no outlet to connect with the society in terms of what's happening with the aerospace as well as the society as such. So a little bit about AIAA Las Vegas section. We have close to about 10,000 community people, which includes aerospace professionals, their friends and family. We have presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere. And we look forward to having these events every week so that people who are working from home or are in transition for the job, they're connected to the society. So I'm not a YP person. I'm pretty old for you guys. So I'll let you, all of you guys, to continue and welcome. And I look forward to getting your participation every week. Thank you for joining AIAA.
All right, I guess I'll kick things off then. My name is Brett Cornick. I am a early career material science master's degree holder, and I think tonight we're just going to mostly try to keep things mostly lighthearted, talk about possible ways that perhaps we've been affected, but keep things positive. And I think just mostly, provide a forum for people to come together and kind of just keep the topics about aerospace and professional life.
Brett. Just this one. We actually have Dr. Dan Raymer join us.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Raymer is our AIAA fellow, and he's a textbook author for a very famous textbook for conceptual aircraft design. Yeah, he's with us tonight.
Dan is very popular guy in AIAA.
Well, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Dan, I'm sure the younger folks want to hear from you.
Yeah.
About career, job. I mean, Dan is probably now retired, but
no, I'm not retired.
Love to share his experience.
I'll never retire. I can't retire. I love this too much. I'm early career.
That's right.
There you go. Hey, Ken, real quick, what's our current dial-in count?
Dial-in count right now is, let me take a look, 19.
And let's check this, Ken, at the end too, just to see what our forum size.
Okay, Brett, sorry, go ahead. Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So I think the way that we're kind of going to do this is if you have any topics or conversations that you want to have during this time, why don't you throw them in the chat and we'll try to address them all. Beyond that, I think we're just going to mostly, hear from most of our members here that, what kinds of things they're working on now, how they're staying busy, how they're keeping their skills sharp, and maybe if anything, if there's any positives that have come out of needing to change their work schedules or their work environment. Is there anyone who wants to kind of start off?
Brett, before we start off, just wanted you already told people, right? This is a recorded event, and the event video will be uploaded to YouTube as well as Facebook as well as our website.
Good point. Thanks for including that. So yeah, I guess don't share anything that you wouldn't want given to the public.
Right. And this is Fred. Companies are still hiring in spite of the current medical situation in the environment. So if anybody's concerned about that or interested in that, that could certainly be a key topic for discussion.
Mm-hmm. I personally this week have had already 2 different calls with recruiters. I had a bit of an unfortunate happenstance with my job because of this whole situation. So I've been and the recruiters that I've talked to are reaffirming that people are hiring. So especially in our field, everything will rebound. So if you find yourself without work, I don't think it's a time to get discouraged. Think of it as a way of finding new opportunity.
Good point.
So I heard, Dan, that you're quite popular with the younger folk. I'm actually not familiar with you, Dan. So maybe if you wanted to give a quick background, some introduction, what is it you do, and why are you so popular?
Just a second, Dan. Sorry for this. We actually have Mr. Jerry Lockenow. He's down from Pennsylvania, I believe, right, Jerry?
I used to live in Los Angeles and was part of your AIAA LA Las Vegas chapter. So yeah, happy to join you.
Yeah, he's our member, and he was also a adjunct professor, right, in USC yes. and Marymount. Yeah,
right.
Thank you so much, Dan. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, Dan has written some books. I'm sure you guys probably read his books. So it would be great if Dan talks for a few minutes, and maybe, you know, Jerry can talk a few minutes too.
Get his signature, you know, autograph.
I was thinking about it.
Hi, Jerry. I see you're there.
Yes. Hello. Hi, Dan.
I don't know if you can see me with my my headset on here.
Yes, I can.
I look like a Cyberman. I don't know, obscure reference. I am an aircraft designer, but I've also done a fair amount of spacecraft design stuff. And I wrote a textbook on aircraft design and then a couple more related books. So that's how people know me. But I don't want to dominate this wonderful meeting, but I'm happy to be here and answer questions, or, you know, I can play guitar or whatever you guys want to make it more fun. So I just pointed out to my wife that if this is a happy hour, I didn't have any wine, so now I'm all fixed. So
definitely.
Anyway, I can tell a story. You know, if any of you that have just graduated and feel like the world just fell on your head, now it goes back a ways. I'll be revealing almost how old I am. But when I graduated, I went to work at one of the biggest aerospace companies in the world, which was the Rockwell North American Aviation. And they'd actually built more high-tech aircraft than I think anybody, with the possible exception of MiG, supersonic fighters and all that kind of stuff, space shuttle, B-1, B-70, you might have heard of a few of those. I went there. I was so happy to go to this. What's that? What year? 76. 1976. So I went there, and it was the company was basically doing the B-1 at that time. That was a giant big program. And after I had been there less than a year, President Jimmy Carter canceled the B-1, and this gigantic factory went from being, you know, completely employed and all kinds of exciting things going on to a ghost town, literally over a weekend. It was the weirdest thing ever. And so I and everybody else, we were sure we were all going to get fired immediately. But weirdly enough, since we were in advanced design, they kept us because they wanted to get the next project. So don't give up hope. You know, you might have to change some of your plans. You know, you might not be able to, you know, buy a hot car this year, but hang in there. Pretty soon, it'll turn back. It'll happen.
Yeah, Dan, I went through that same time period. I actually started with North American Aviation in 1967, and then they were bought by Rockwell. And in 69, they sent me and some others from Columbus, Ohio, out to Los Angeles to work on, they were doing the F-15 and the B-1 proposals at the same time. And I actually worked on the F-15 proposal while other folks were doing the B-1 proposal. So, but I do remember that period when the B-1 shut down, and I remember going down to Rockwell. We were building HIMAT there at the time, and there were desks and drawing boards and all that sitting outside the door in big stacks from all the people that had been laid off.
So just so you know, Dan and Jerry worked in the company that I currently work a long time ago. My company is called Aerojet Rocketdyne, which used to be Pratt & Whitney Rocketdyne. Before that, it's Boeing Rocketdyne. And then before that, it was the NAA, North American Aviation, Rockwell. And I remember Dan's resume. Dan actually won the same award that I won, Engineer of the Year award.
So, great.
Dan is popular in our company too.
Yeah, you're reminding me. I actually heard once that the only thing constant in life is change. So your companies change every year or two, right?
Hey, Dan and Jerry, now's my chance, now that I know that you guys were involved in that, to give you guys a debt of gratitude for two reasons. Number two, first, the sort of semi-obvious one is that I was one of the last people to work at what was at the time BNA, the transitional company and Downey before they shut it down. But actually, my first, I didn't go to straight through the doctorate when I was in school. So I left school, worked, and then went back. So my first job in that in-between period was with the Westinghouse Defense Center outside of Baltimore, which is now Northrop Grumman Electronic Systems. And we did a number of radars, including the B-1. So I actually started my career. I worked on so many little bits and pieces of radar algorithms. I don't know exactly if I worked on B-1 or not, but it was it was kind of our bread and butter then. So thank you guys for winning that, because we got a nice subcontract out of it.
Yeah, winning that was before my time. It was already in flight test when I got there, but Jerry was there in that period. But all the guys that I worked with, the guys that taught me how to do configuration layout design, they are the guys who did that, who developed the overall configuration for that and X-15 and Space Shuttle and B-70 and HIMAT and all these amazing airplanes. Yeah. Listen, I got a great idea though. Why don't we old guys stop talking and let the younger members talk about how screwed they are.
Brett, over to you.
Well, we do like hearing to you older guys talk about how not screwed you are, because we think that we'll be there one day. So we appreciate it. I did want to take a second, since we're still kind of at the beginning of this, in case people have to drop off early, I wanted to just mention to the town hall meeting that is this Saturday from 10 to 12, a similar Zoom meeting. Fred's going to be doing some resume advice, some guidance, and we also have a couple of speakers. Fred, did you want to just give a quick brief on who the speakers on Saturday will be?
Sure. Well, I'd be happy to. The middle one, actually, we may run till 1 or 1:30, but the middle one is a dear colleague of mine from co-located Raytheon, who's a software wizard, and he's going to be talking about Agile and DevOps. DevSecOps actually, and also some extreme programming. And Agile and DevSecOps are huge with regard to a lot of defense contracts these days. And then there's an opening talk on some virus updates that I'm not too sure of, so Sakar probably could chime in on that.
We are trying to get a virologist to talk about the airborne viruses and the thing, but we are not sure. We'll let Fred decide. Fred and Ken decide.
I'm really getting a kick out of the Shekhar show. Anybody else watching that? First of all, really, isn't the Taj Mahal closed down? No tourists allowed?
Yeah, no tourists. Yeah.
Guy, some of us are not online, so you might want to give a little backfill of what you're talking about.
He's in front of a beautiful picture of the Taj Mahal, and
then he's rotating.
His head keeps coming in sideways and from the top, like an old Monty Python sketch.
He's been playing in 0G.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
There's
another one.
Brett was trying to allude to the first speaker on Saturday, which I think you or Ken know more about, right?
Yeah. So we'll send a notice, updated notice, once we have finalized everything. So
the lady speaker.
I think it's a lady speaker.
Yeah, she's an attorney, and she and her family was very much involved in defense and aerospace, and she herself is a pilot, and that she her attorney, as attorney, she represented several aerospace company, airlines, so she knows a lot of the inside out and supply chains, defense contractors, and also she's also a pilot, so she knew a lot of aviation pilot, a pilot, steward, those employees, and that she knows a lot of the government orders. So she has a lot of insight about this virus situation from federal to state government. So I think that would be helpful for some of the people to get some of the information about what does that mean for this order and that order, or the bailout, or relief, stimulus relief, those kind of stuff.
Okay, Ken, sounds good.
Great. Yeah, so that'll be this Saturday again. So I want to take a second now too. I know we have a number of people who have joined the meeting.
Marty also joined. Marty is our Las Vegas chapter chair.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm on here now.
Hello, Marty.
Hi.
Hi, Marty.
I did just want to take a moment to see if any of the younger members wanted to volunteer a story about either how their school may be adapting, or how their work may be adapting, or just a personal story from the past month or so that maybe a little snippet of what life is like for you right now. Thought maybe sharing some stories would give us some good insight onto what people are going through and how we can overcome certain obstacles.
Don't be bashful.
Anyone can chime in. Feel free.
Okay, well, people are chiming in. I'll throw in aerospace trivia. As some of you may know, Raytheon and United Technologies Corporation, UTC, are in the throes of finishing another large aerospace merger. And they had to come up with a 3-letter for the new company to replace RTN, which was my incumbent employer's Raytheon symbol. For those folks that aren't so young, might remember a classic espionage movie from the early 80s called Falcon and the Snowman, in which a aspiring engineer at my old company of TRW, which again was the predecessor of Northrop Grumman, went down south of the border and sold secrets to the Russians. And that was back in the heyday when alcohol was allowed in places that certainly not allowed anymore in classified areas. The movie obviously was not allowed to use TRW in any of the footage for the movie. So the 3-letter acronym they came up with was RTX. Guess what the name of the merged Raytheon UTC company symbol is? RTX. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a pretty good classic of the old days.
What's it called again?
Falcon and the Snowman.
Falcon and the Snowman.
Yeah.
The conspirator was a Catholic altar boy from Palos Verdes, of all things. Anyway,
comes out of Palos Verdes.
Yes, I hope that broke the ice. Does anybody following up on Brett's request have any insights or recent saga?
How do you?
I can share.
Go ahead. How about a first name and what you want to talk about?
My wife is an urgent care physician, and she had come across some coronavirus patients in the hospital. So a couple of days ago, she was very nervous that maybe she might actually have it because she was coughing a little bit. So she went and drove and got the test they are doing the test in the parking lot or something. So she went, did the test, found out she's negative. But for those couple of days, we were very stressed.
Oh, God.
Well,
I was told, sorry, I was told the test you need to do like 3 times. The people have the first time negative, second time negative, the third time turn to positive. You have to, as I was so on the news.
I think they're coming out with better tests pretty soon.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
I just saw this morning where UCLA has canceled their summer session to be done online, not in real classes. So even through the end of August, they're doing online teaching.
Wow.
Oh God.
Does anyone have any tips on how to stay focused when you're doing online classes? I know I personally would have a really hard time getting all my work done if I was doing everything from online. Anyone have good experience or tips on how to do that?
I don't know if this counts as a tip, but for me personally, since I'm much more used to going between buildings and stuff throughout the day, even if I'm just switching up in different parts, like different locations, or I'll start on I know they say don't start on the couch, but I've never been a morning person, so I start on the couch for like an hour and then I go to my desk or something, and just changing it up a little bit, whether it's location or music or something, helps me stay focused longer.
That is a good idea. Yeah, I will admit that I have been starting most of my days this week from my bed for about an hour before I actually
I find I could sort of echo what Stephanie said. I've been working out of my home as a consultant for a couple of years now, and I am not a night person. And my two main consulting clients are in the DC area. So, of course, given my chronotype, as they say, I'm not going to be getting up at 4 a.m. to finish something that's due at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Rather, I'm just going to stay up late. So I stay up late, I get up late, but I have breakfast, and then the first thing I do, it's a little bit contrary to the conventional wisdom that says treat it like breakfast. The first thing I do after I finish breakfast is get in my contingency hour. That is, just work for an hour before I do anything else, before I shower, change my clothes or whatever, because at least I'll start the momentum of the day. And before I know it, it's lunchtime and I don't want to stop, So I would say, I don't have any advice what hour to start your day, but whatever your preference is, get to it soon after breakfast. And you can always, because there's always house cleaning, there's always, distractions to do, but get in at least an hour work before you do anything else.
Hey, Seth, is this Seth?
Yes, Fred.
Seth, please mention your NSS affiliations while you're got the horn on.
Oh, yeah. So I guess, for those of you who don't know, I'm president of the Los Angeles chapter of the National Space Society. And one of the things I'm doing is we haven't had an event, a chapter event independent of supporting other events in a while. And there's not too many other events, we had display tables at conventions and conferences. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on these virtual meetings with the aim of organizing a virtual event. Meanwhile, and for those who've been coming to the meetings and heard my debrief of what's going on in the National Space Society, as my role as ambassador from our section, their annual conference, the International Space Development Conference, scheduled for late May in Dallas, rather, is not going to be held. And they are looking to have some other similar event later on in the year. They were very non-specific about that, but refunds are being issued to those of us who registered. Meanwhile, as far as I know, it is still on track to be held in May of 2021 in LA. So I'll keep everybody posted.
Faith, I was just thinking about it. Maybe your society can support. We have an American Chemical Society and AIAA are jointly organizing a Earth Day event on 25th of April, where we have invited a couple of people. One of them includes the JPL director for the Earth Sciences. Yeah. And so you might actually want to sponsor the event. Sponsorship, there's no cost involved. So let me know if you want to. You can take it offline.
Yeah, you'll take it offline. I committed to possibly participating in some virtual conferences around sometime in April. I have to check the dates, make sure there's no conflict. But thanks for the heads up, Shakar. Might be an opportunity.
There was a question a minute ago about how people deal with the whole homeschooling sort of a thing. And I don't homeschool, but I've been working at my house. That's where I am right now. I have an office in my house for a long, long time, 30 30 years, I guess.
Wow.
And I have two suggestions, one of which is exercise, and the other is coffee.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what's been getting me through too.
Probably not in that order.
Well, kind of simultaneous.
I would agree with the exercise thing. Get the exercise in, and if you need most of the successful people, everybody from Bezos to Musk, to everybody, get up early. I am not a morning person, but I force myself to be. I get up about 3:45 and start working out immediately, and that gets you going. And once you're rolling, man, and you get the energy going, it just doesn't stop. But then pace it during the day. Don't sit in front of the computer all day long and wonder why you phase out and you can't figure anything out. It's because your brain's locked. Take breaks. Look around. Somebody said listen to music, whatever you got to do, but pace yourself on it. Don't try and grind for 8 hours staring at a screen, or you'll burn out faster than anything.
We don't have a treadmill at home. What do you recommend?
Yeah.
What? We don't have a treadmill at home, exercise equipment.
Walk or bike ride.
You can look up, go outside and run. That's the best thing you can do, and get out. Get out of the house, man. The idea of staying in a closed, confined space without going outside is ludicrous. You can read a lot. I'm sure a lot of you guys follow astronauts and stuff, and there's a lot of good references they're given about being sheltered and stuff. But and then there's a lot of exercises you can do at home. I used to go to the gym every day, and it's been a challenge to come up with an equivalent workout, but there's all kind of.
There's actually online a number of people starting to put even more stuff online. There were always, videos you could find on YouTube and stuff, but a lot of the providers that usually have classes and stuff are actually putting some of their stuff online, and are even in many cases making free classes that would normally be charged for, just kind of like trying to help out in a way they can. So there's a lot of stuff there. I think there's also some phone apps that can help direct you to things. I don't think there's like a central one place I can, say go here and it's all there, but there's a lot more content being developed even within the past, say, 3 weeks. That was before it, and that can be a way to do it too.
Yeah, I agree. Even if you follow your favorite workout people, Schwarzenegger posted his travel workout from when he was doing Mr. Universe, and part of that is like take a broomstick across a couple chairs to do back rows and stuff. So it's little tricks like that where if you take some time and do some searches, you'll be able to put together whatever workout you need to. You might not be able to buff up, but you can at least sustain.
Definitely. Yeah.
How about getting a pet?
Brett, take hold of this meeting. Make it more fun for people who are under 50.
Well, so we got a question from Brian Buss in the chat. Hi, Brian. If anyone is out there actively job hunting, and what are HR and recruiters saying? So I am actively job hunting myself. I had a job lined up for about the last 3 months that I was supposed to start on March 16th, which is right about when everything hit the fan. And it was at a startup. So they didn't really have much resources to be able to power through this. So that's on hold for now. So I'm actually job hunting. I have talked to a couple recruiters this week, and the common thing they both said was to take this time to sharpen my skills on any online or computer tools that I might have under my belt. So something like SolidWorks or your Python skills, your MATLAB, anything that you can work on remotely, because the jobs that will be hiring, right now and for the next 2 months at least probably are the ones that can at least have some of their job function completed remotely. Brian, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about your experience or what your search is like.
Well, I'm not in an active job search, but when I'm not, one of the things I like to do is I live here in Thousand Oaks, and I get over to CSUN and I talk to the students, and my topic is salary negotiation. A lot of people don't realize you can negotiate salary when you come out of school, or soon in your career. but I realized I just spoke to them in October, and I said, you're graduating in a hot job market. You got a great, these are like supply chain, finance, accounting, engineering folks. And now, some of them are like, hey, what do you suggest now? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't have the answer right now. So when a recruiter says sharpen your pencil and do more online training, that's like another answer for we're not sure ourselves what to tell you. So, I was just curious.
Another tip that I received from a recruiter that I'm not sure how much I loved this tip, but since they passed it on to me, I might as well pass it on to, and maybe you guys can judge it for yourself. They said that, the market right now is not what it was a month ago. You might not have the same leverage to negotiate as you did 1 month ago. But that doesn't mean that you can't maybe be hired at a lower rate than what you were looking for, but make sure that you're not hired for a 1-year contract or 2-year contractual thing that you can't get out of whenever you'd like to. If you just need something as a 3-month filler to build your resume, show that you're not unemployed, there's no shame, especially now, in taking, an internship or a position that just will help you build connections and gain some skills that maybe wasn't the dream that you were looking for. Now, I personally am a little, I get where that advice is coming from, but I don't know, what's everyone else's thought on that?
Well, I think so one of the things I tell the students I talk to, a lot of people think salary negotiation is just about salary. And I said, no, there's a lot to talk about besides that. And one of the things I always encourage them is if they didn't get the amount they were looking for, most companies are on like an annual performance review or discussion. So I said, ask your recruiter or HR if you can have a 6-month or a 90-day assessment to, if you really think, I came in a little low, I got to prove myself, well, ask for that evaluation early. So in these times, if you want to be respectful of the fact that your employer might not have a crystal ball and know where they're going to be 3 months from now, but you can say, hey, I'll come in, I want to help out, I want to learn, I want to offer, my skills. And instead of, let's sitting down a year from now and evaluating how I've been doing, would you agree to sit down 90 days or 6 months from now and rediscussing, if appropriate, my compensation? Obviously, you'll be in a different financial situation. I myself as the candidate will be in a different financial situation, right? Right now, we're all a little scared. So I think that's totally fair and totally professional tactic for anyone who's negotiating actively or job hunting today.
I like that idea a lot. Jesse, I saw in the chat you posted that you had an interview today, and they said that their work hasn't really been affected other than working from home. You want to talk about what kind of role that was and any other details of that, how that interview went?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
It was for a model-based systems engineering role. For the position I applied for was for an expert or someone that had like a master's. But what they told me is that in July, when they're hiring people under that person for the team, that they would contact me. That's about it.
Okay, gotcha.
By the way, Jesse volunteered for our March 7th student conference event. He did a very good job.
Thank you.
Good.
I have a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
First of all, I've kind of been around the block once or twice, and I was director of advanced design at Lockheed and hired a lot of people and looked at a lot of resumes, way too many resumes. And I did the same thing at Aerojet as director of future missions. So, I've been on the other side quite a bit. Thank goodness I'm not anymore, but I've done that in my past. If I were in the situation of people graduating now, looking for a real job, I would pretend that nothing is happening out of the ordinary, and that this is all temporary. And sure, you can't hire me right now, but when this all settles itself out, I'm going to be your best guy, and just go for it on that basis. And another thing is, in kind of an interim period, yeah, the idea of working on skills is great, but another thing you could do is do some kind of an internship. And here's the trick, and you're going to hate to hear it, but do an internship where they don't pay you. Do a free internship. But if you do that, find a really good company, either where there's a good chance that they'll employ you later, or where you're going to get some really good skills that another company would value. And if you do an internship for free for somebody, they kind of owe you, and they will make it up to you. So they'll either hire you, probably, if you're good, or they'll really help you get a job somewhere else. So if you can stand it financially to do an unpaid internship for a couple, 3 months, that's also a really good way to get your foot in the door.
I like that suggestion. Do you know, Dan, if you are working an unpaid internship, can you still apply for unemployment? I would assume so, right?
I think so.
I would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I'm pretty. Yeah, you should be able to.
You have no earning.
Yeah.
Well, were you laid off, Brett?
No. The unfortunate situation for me is I submitted my notice to leave on March 10th, right after I had received my first offer letter. But then we were still in some negotiation back and forth on some details, and then I wasn't able to rescind my resignation, and the new opportunity was viable to hire me at the moment. So they're going to reassess it in a few months. But since I technically quit, my last day is actually this Friday, but I haven't been working all week because.
Yeah. So when you resign or quit, then I don't believe you are eligible for unemployment. So you got caught up in that kind of perfect storm there.
Yeah, I'm probably going to submit an application and see what they what comes of it. But yeah, it was unfortunate timing. But I maybe take some solace in the fact that I am not the only one, and I'm not even the person in the worst situation. I mean, everyone's going through this, so for better or worse, everyone's in the same boat.
Brett,
and you're sure they won't let you say, I was just kidding, I'm not really quitting?
I went back to them, and they right now have a company-wide policy of no new hires while we're holding this out. And since they already completed all of my paperwork, I would have to come back on as a new hire.
Have they laid anybody off?
They have not, I don't believe.
I was just wondering about the feasibility of renegotiating your departure as a voluntary layoff.
I guess I could do that. Like I said, my final day is tomorrow.
Yeah, worth asking anyway.
Ask him if they would support your unemployment application, right? In some way, talk to your HR person and say, look, it's not their money directly. They've paid it into the system, and just be like, hey, I had no ill will. I was negotiating a job as a professional and I just got caught up. Would you support, or what would you guys help me in that?
Okay. Right. That's actually a good idea. I should put more legwork into that, I suppose.
Hey, Brett, it's Moses speaking. Quick points to add to the discussion. At the resume workshop that Ken had a few months ago, I presented on unorthodox ways of looking for a job. I know I graduated during the worst time. Well, the second worst time. This is, of course, now the first. But the second worst time to graduate with the aerospace engineering degree, and that was the budget cuts back in 2012. And what I presented on essentially was using other alternative methods. So, for example, for myself, I had a lot of research, undergraduate research for the Office of Naval Research and for the Navy, in addition to a number of programs and projects I had that had a lot more of a mechanical engineering focus. So I had an ocean engineering background with an aerospace engineering degree with a mechanical engineering internship. And so one thing I realized now on this side of the front, doing recruiting for this company and my old company, there's jobs that show up that's the exact same rec. The difference is the degree that's shown on it. So what I'd have is I'd have a mechanical engineering background scope of a resume with my aerospace engineering degree, but it highlighted all my mechanical engineering focus and the projects and things that I worked on. I had another resume that had my aerospace engineering degree, but had all the aerospace stuff on it. And then I had another resume that had all of the ocean engineering work that I did with my aerospace engineering degree. And that's one of the ways I've seen others use and leverage, because it might be the exact same rec. The difference is they're looking for an AE versus an ME. And so when I got into industry, I actually got a mechanical engineering job as an aerospace engineer, but it was pretty much the same stuff. And that's what I talk about when I was saying before, creative, seeking and searching. Some of the stuff before were more face-to-face interactions and being able to travel and stuff. Of course, in this climate, that's not as ideal, but I think getting creative in the recs and maybe even taking on a role that you wouldn't ideally want as your dream role, but at least get your foot in the door, like working in quality or working in a department that otherwise wouldn't necessarily suit you, but they wanted degreed engineers, whether it's in materials or it's in industrial systems where it's on the manufacturing line. There's so many other things that are open that, again, me as a standard AE, I was like, oh man, I really want to do this. And then I ended up doing structures and systems, and mostly on a systems focus. And even now in industry, I always said I hated electrical. Like, I chose aero because I didn't want to do any electrical work. And it's funny, my first job out of college, I had to like work schematics, do electrical and hydraulic, and it was the worst thing ever, but I got a job. So I took it. And now I'm working in industry on the electrical front. So yeah, it's funny how industry can twist you around based on the opportunities that are presented.
I think Moises said exactly. This is great what Moises said. I mean, my background is very similar actually. I'm a chemical engineer with a bunch of degrees in chemical engineering. But all I do is now I worked on space launch. Then I work on torpedoes and missiles, which has very much less of chemical engineering, more of aerospace background. So it's just that, you adapt your skill set to the problem that is put in front once you are in a job, and you adapt to the new skill sets. So yeah, I think great idea. Thanks, Moises.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Yeah, the Moses talk last year, November 16, was a great one. It was a very good talk. It's fun too. Yeah, we should have a chance to listen to him again.
So then I have kind of a follow-up question to that then. As far as interviews go during this time, do any of the older members, I use that term loosely and lightly, perhaps have tips, anyone who's done hiring themselves before, do you have tips on how to compose yourself, how to present yourself, how to talk during an e-interview as opposed to a in-person interview?
I think Steve, Mr. Gelb raised his hand.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Yes, I go a ways back. My interviews were in person, but make sure you smile a lot in the camera and show how much you know, and talk up your academic record, provided it's one you're proud of, and how prestigious the universities you attended, because I don't want to boast, but at my first interview at Hughes Aircraft, of course, this was an uptime in the industry, so the interviewer was trying to sell me on joining Hughes. This was in 1973, and Vietnam was just winding down. But I got my first job there.
Yeah, I would add a couple things. I think number one, do your homework on the company that you're interviewing so that you've got some knowledge of the people and what they do and that sort of thing, and you can ask questions about the details of what they do and what your role would be in that. Number one. Number two, quiz the interviewer. Don't just talk about yourself and what you can do, but pick the brain of the interviewer about what his company is like, how does, and that sort of thing. Show a sincere interest in the job that you're going after and the company that you're about to join. And the other thing is, you know, I ran the F-35 program with Lockheed for Northrop Grumman, and we started out with about 10 people, and I hired 1,100. And we took a lot of people from within the company to form sort of the core of the team. But then a lot of those managers to be that were also in on the hiring process were preferring experienced people as opposed to new graduates or people just out of school. And I encouraged them to hire a significant portion of college graduates as well. And in the first few months after that, they were so pleased with these new college hires because they had the skills and the modern tools and the things that some of the old timers or the people that had been around for 10 or 20 years, you know, didn't really know and understand. So they were really pleased with the performance of these people coming right out of college. So I think it's, you can use that to convince people that you can really contribute to their company.
I think is remember that interviews go both ways. So you're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. So and that lends itself to you asking questions and needing to know their company, because you know, I know you want to pay the bills, and it may seem like a bleak situation, but you don't want to end up working at a place where you're going to be unhappy and you're not going to fit in, because culture is probably the biggest thing that'll make you happy or not happy. So when you go to that interview and whoever you're talking to, just remember that it's both ways. It's not just you put your best foot forward. It should be them doing the same thing. But in order to do that, you got to be prepared as well. So
one particular thing that's going to be different doing an digital interview versus in person. In person, a lot of times you can convey, you know, confidence and et cetera through body language. You're not going to be able to do that as much digitally, particularly with your eyes. To maintain eye contact, you're going to have to look in the camera, which isn't necessarily where the person is. And you're going to, I know people who will put their, the little box that shows them near the camera because they know they will be checking to see how they're looking, except then the interviewer can see them checking to see how they're looking, and it's a cycle. So that's something that's harder to do digitally just because we're not used to that type of interaction nearly as much as in person when you're talking to someone and you're looking them in the eye. So that's something that's going to be slightly different.
Great, thank you.
And always point that out, like on a phone interview or anytime you're nervous for a reason, it's okay to say, I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little nervous, right? It humanizes you. Don't, you know, perfection is often, you try to be perfect, it betrays you, right? I put in the chat, one of my tips is I interview like it's my first day. So I think it was one of the other gentlemen said, pretend, just be confident, say, well, when the company recovers, I'll be the first one you call, right? Talk with that confidence. I tell people, pretend like you already have the job, right? So you say, I mean, before the interview, when you're thinking about questions, you say, what questions would I have if this was my manager that I'm interviewing with? What questions would I have for this manager if it was the first day on the job? For example, what type of people will I be working with on teams? Are these teams domestic? Are they located in Europe or Asia? Will I be getting up? Will I be participating in meetings at various times of the day? Will I be traveling? You know, what kind of style of manager are you? You know, do you expect me, is remote kind of work okay? Do you expect me to check in with you each week? Do you want an update every day? You know, I mean, you know, those are all things that you would be asking on your first day on a job. And they're nice ways of really understanding what the job is that you're interviewing, because it's okay to decide, you know, after the interview, this isn't the kind of job I really wanted, or maybe the management style of the person who's going to be hiring you wasn't compatible with what you were looking for as well.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, I have a few thoughts. I've spent my career in advanced design, and usually the advanced design department is, well, we're sort of rocket scientists. You know, it's kind of the cream of the cream usually. And when I was interviewing people, if you got an actual interview, you already passed. I mean, I would go through your resume. I would go through your resume and basically, I wouldn't bother if it didn't look like somebody that would be good. So if you got an interview with me, you already passed, and all you can do in the interview is screw it up. So to a large extent, it was don't screw it up. Don't be so socially inept. Don't be a complete, Sheldon, off the top, hard to get along with, arrogant, 5 other things that you could do to blow it. And the other thing was I just had to have a warm feeling that you really loved the work, that you wanted to do this, that you thought it was cool, that you thought it was fun, that it was, as much of a hobby as it was a job.
Yes.
I'd already gone through all the, okay, they got good grades. Okay. They did the right, professional societies, and they, did volunteer work and all this other kind of stuff that we all look for. That was all over long before you ever met me in person.
Okay.
So I have a story I tell, and it's actually in one of my books, about a young woman who interviewed, and she was so nervous. She just freaked out nervous. And I'd already decided if she was good in person, she was going to get the job. She had a good resume. And she was so nervous. She just looked all around and looked at my fingers, and she said, "Do you bite your fingernails?" I hired her. She was great. Anyway, okay, so that's some
no
of my
problem
thoughts.
being nervous. No problem being nervous then. Too.
Yeah, everybody's nervous. Everybody's nervous.
And
everybody says dumb things.
A couple of tips that I have, kind of piggybanking off of what Dan had said. I had also read recently that people, when they're doing these e-interviews or e-meetings, they have a tendency to not really exchange pleasantries first. They just jump right into things, and that can often have a negative effect on whatever you're trying to accomplish. So just because you're not in the same room as someone, you're not actually, physically shaking their hand, don't forget to, sit down, get comfortable, exchange pleasantries, carry it on like a general, normal conversation. One more thing, we were talking about conferences a little bit earlier. I think, Seth, were you talking about conferences earlier?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. So there are a number of conferences that have, though they have not been canceled, they've been moved into a completely online format with either reduced or completely free fees. So if you're looking for a job, I think that would be a great way to network. Maybe, research some of the conferences that would have been going on this summer or this year that would have a lot of the professionals or the companies you would be interested in working for, and see if it's possible for you to attend their e-conference, since you no longer have to travel and their registration fee may be, $0 or at least heavily reduced. I'm not exactly sure what format a lot of these conferences will take, but I think that at the very least, it could be a good way to learn more subjects that they're presenting on, and to network with some people that will be there. Does anyone have any examples of any conferences they were going to attend this year that are now being held completely online?
Actually, I was invited to speak at 2, and I think one is in April, one I think is in June or in July. I'll try to find it and get back to you.
Okay, no problem.
I'll send it to the group, or send me. I think my name is in the distribution. Send me an email reminding me, and I'll reply.
Will do. Thanks, Seth.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got one. The Society of Allied Weight Engineers is doing a conference online instead of in person, and I've been asked to do some sort of a keynote speech. I don't know what it's going to be, but coming up June, I think, or July or something like that.
Do you know if their registration fees have changed for that event from the in-person?
Oh, I am not sure. I don't want to say something and be wrong.
Right,
so
sure, no problem.
I'm not sure.
Okay, no problem. Let's see what else we have in the chat. Any other questions?
There's some people that are looking for internships.
Brett, this is Fred. Back on the even the virtual interview versus on-site interview. Finding out something about the contract that you're, again, this has an aerospace bias to it, but finding out the extent of the contract that you're being hired for. what the length of it is. Did they just win it? Is it ongoing? Whether the company that you're working for is considered the prime or they're a subcontractor on the contract is also fairly important. Also, in larger companies that are in a matrix organization, whether you're interviewing in the functional area, like systems engineering or test engineering or quality engineering, or whether you're actually being hired with the project team would be of interest, because in larger companies, your home base, so to speak, is with the functional organization.
Got it. Thanks, Fred.
Sure. A segue. There is also lots of headhunting or agencies out there, and most of them are dealing with what they call hire. So that's still a pretty big potential acquisition, is to do a contract to hire, where you're hired for 6 or 9 months and then you convert to direct. It helps a lot of companies with surges where they need a lot of extra help on short notice.
Yeah, I personally have actually submitted my resume in the last day to 4 different headhunting agencies here in Los Angeles. So I mean, why not try to have someone else do the work for you? They'll know who's trying to hire and where the needs are. So that's also never a bad idea. I've also done a lot of work the last 24 hours making sure my LinkedIn is in tip-top shape. I think that's pretty obvious guidance right now. Any other questions from any of the younger professionals here?
So I'm an international student, and I graduated from my master's in aerospace engineering from USC. So the issue that I'm facing is due to ITAR restrictions. They do not hire international students, and I'm on my OPT right now. So does anyone have any suggestions on that?
Yeah, aerospace, they want, sometimes you have to get a security clearance, and you can't do that if you're not a U.S. citizen. So that makes it tough.
Yeah, and I work with a lot of aerospace suppliers, Navya, and they're all in the same boat. So ITAR is just a barrier, but an aerospace degree is a very valuable degree. I wouldn't limit yourself to something that's just aerospace, right? I mean, there's an engineer is an engineer. So biotechnology is huge in Southern California. I'm assuming you're in Southern California or Las Vegas?
Yeah, so right now I live in LA, but I came on a vacation to India and I'm stuck in India. So
okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of small companies that are doing vertical flight type things, electric aircraft. That's all growing really fast, and there's so many companies doing it. You might not quite get the salary you were hoping to get, but a lot of them don't have ITAR restrictions. So that might be a good place to go, and you'll learn a lot too.
Also, in some of the more public sectors, I know I work at NASA JPL, and we have some jobs that don't fall under that restriction. They tend to be a bit higher competed, honestly, because there are a lot of people that want to try to get that, into those jobs that can't have others, but they are out there. Sometimes it's a bit harder to find, and I don't have personal experience in that search. But they do exist. There are companies that put the blanket on there, and then there are other companies that will divide it up more by job, but sometimes you have to, it's not like they put it right on their website of, we hire or we don't, and so it takes extra effort to figure that out, which is unfortunate. But they do exist, I promise.
And I used to work for Eaton Aerospace in Los Angeles, but they have an entire division in Pune, India. A lot of people there. I don't know if they're hiring right now, but because they're a division of an American company, it's a little easier for them to get around the ITAR rules if you want to stay in India. Everyone I met from Pune division. They loved coming to the United States. They loved eating. They loved learning. They all were hungry and always had a great attitude. So, that's an option too.
Can I know which company is, if you have?
Eaton, E-A-T-O-N.
Eaton, okay.
Eaton Aerospace, and they have a big division in Pune, India. Now, I don't know where you are in India and how far away from Pune you are.
Yeah, so currently I'm looking for jobs within the United States, but yeah.
So well, I hope she succeeds in coming and staying in the United States, because I want the USA to steal all the smart people from the rest of the world.
There you go.
Let's get her.
Yeah, and what I would always remind the college grads or those that, I mean, you guys have something we don't. So I have 3 children. I'm in Thousand Oaks. I'm not about to take a job outside of a 50-mile radius of where I live, right? It's just not. So you guys have the whole United States to choose from, any industry. You have a great degree in engineering. So always speak that up. Like if you need me in LA and then you need me in Indiana, I'm ready to go. Because a lot of their staff obviously are not mobile like that. And I mean, I grew up in California. I went to school at Purdue University in Indiana. I worked in Detroit. Yeah, I worked in Detroit for Ford, and I came back. I mean, and the best part was I was in a rotation program at Ford, and I was like, where do you want to move me? Where do I go next? I mean, so enjoy that freedom while you have it, assuming you don't have family already or restrictions with family or parents' responsibilities. And always remind the recruiters, if they're not hiring at a Los Angeles site of Eaton, for example, I worked there as well, Mark. Eaton is global and Eaton is nationwide, and say, hey, now that you've met me, if I don't get this position here in Los Angeles, what else do you have? Would you recommend me at your site in North Carolina that I see is also hiring for an engineer or such and such? So never just take no, or if they're sensing like, well, we've kind of already filled the position, but it was great to meet you. It's like, hold on, you met me. What does Eaton need nationwide, not just Los Angeles?
Got it. Thank you.
I've got a couple points too I can throw out. Dan had said, I think he just jumped off, but he had said, mentioned the startups, and almost all of my work experience actually since getting my undergrad, also at USC, by the way, fight on, was in startups. And a thing that my roommate actually mentioned to me today, as a way to keep us in high spirits was, he talked to me, he gave me a couple examples of just how many companies were born and boomed out of the 2008 recession. I mean, as horrible, also times of great opportunity. Out of 2008, we got Venmo, we got Uber, we got, I forget the other few that he mentioned, but there was a big boom of companies that started and then became really something. So just because you haven't heard of a company, or just because it's a small company, especially at this time, I would say, don't have that be a reason not to check it out. A good friend of mine at USC, actually, he joined about a 10-person startup when he graduated as a Trojan, and then that company turned out to be Relativity Space. So there's always opportunities. I would say definitely look at the startups. And like Dan said, maybe they're not as strict on ITAR rules because they have smaller projects currently.
Well, the problem that I'm facing with startups is I got to intern with an early stage startup during my summer, and I learned a lot. But otherwise, there are some startups which have ITAR restrictions. Otherwise, they're a small company, so they're not able to sponsor me or international visa. So that is one issue I'm facing with the startups.
Gotcha. The balance of needing it to be large enough that they can sponsor you, but not quite so large that the ITAR is a big issue. Well, does anyone else have any topics here? We have 20 minutes left. If there's anything that we haven't addressed yet or spoken on that we wanted to include, Fred, were there any other topics you wanted to make sure we got to before the end?
Well, why don't you spend 2 minutes talking about our resume discussion and what resulted from that?
Oh, sure, yeah. So I 2 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago now, I sent my resume over to Fred for some review, and I had up until now just been working on trying to compress all of my information onto one page. He's like, Brett, you got to expand this into 2 pages. This is unreadable. It's too crammed. And so I don't know why I hadn't tried to do that before, but now I've very nicely fleshed out into 2 pages. I was able to include more of the work that I did in research and publications, and I thought to myself, why didn't I do this months ago? So Sean just asked, where can we send our resumes for review? So I sent it to Fred. He's I think the phone number that's in the chat, not actually, his name's not in here, but he will have, he's gonna have a resume workshop during the E-Town Hall this Saturday that I mentioned earlier. So if you're able to join, it's 10 a.m. until, well, it's scheduled 10 a.m. till noon, but Fred said we might go till about 1:30 even. So you should tune in to that on Saturday if you wanted some resume help.
Right. And he just owes me dinner.
That's it. Okay, that's news to me. Understood. Oh, and Navia, I wanted to give you one more bit of advice that I had thought of while someone else was speaking, but I had 2 summers of experience working at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and one of the things that I was shocked by there was how many foreign nationals were working there. And I think that I don't know if that's just the case at Lawrence Livermore National Lab or if all the national labs are like that, but every single person on my team in the material science division, except for myself and the head guy in charge, was actually a foreign national. So I know that there's only certain projects that you can work on at those national labs, but I don't think that you should be shied away from a national lab just because it's a federal entity. They do hire a lot of foreign nationals as well.
Hey, Brett, you're 100% right on that. This is Moses again, and we work with them, and they certainly do have an open door when it comes to folks coming from abroad. And another thing too, I think, Navia, we talked about this before at the at Ken's networking event. It's the subcontractors. There's a number of other subcontractors that are out there doing components, so all the COT stuff, pretty much off the shelf stuff, that doesn't necessarily have, the ITAR designation, and some of the European companies too. So I work for a component manufacturer. We do all the electrical stuff. We do all the electrical, the fluid, all the connectors. And companies like mine and others, we're not currently hiring right now, but there's a number of others in our sector and segment that don't and aren't as stringent about that. Well, we do have one role if you'd be interested in field engineering, but you'd have to move to Toronto, to Canada. So if you are interested in moving to Toronto, give me a shout after this. But yeah, there are component level companies who do have COTS products that you could look at because they might be a little bit more, might be less restrictive. So something else to think about.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have about 15 minutes left. If no one else has any additional career questions or career advice or anything professional career related, we can move into some more light-hearted topics if no one else has anything more they want to discuss on that.
Well, could I just say one thing?
Of course.
Many aerospace companies have rotation programs and fellowship programs, and the rotation program lets you sample a fixed number of departments or plant sites for maybe 6 months at a time. And I was a full-time rotator, so I had a 40-hour work week. But if you take the fellowship option with your rotation option, you get maybe 20 hours a week of pay for a rotation. And the other 20 hours, you go toward a master's or doctorate at a nearby university, and the company pays your tuition. So that's something to consider.
Right, and in my days at Eaton, they had I can't remember the acronym for it, but it's like a leadership engineering program or something. And
yeah.
You work at one division for 1 year, and then they will move you to another part of the country, and you work at that division for a year, and then you move to a third division for a year. It could be commercial, it could be aerospace, it could be a variety of subjects. We had a woman from come to work in aerospace, and she come from the supercharger division.
Yeah, and some engineering departments have a joint MBA engineering program, so you can get your MBA and your master's in engineering at the same time and become a manager.
But a final note of my experience at Eaton, I worked for a company for 26 years, got caught in the 2008 recession, and 2010 was kicked out of a job I had for 26 years. And,
wow.
You know, every time you turn on the TV, it's saying, worst recession since the Great Depression. And I landed at Eaton, albeit at a pay cut. And I ended up in the electrical engineering department, even though my degree's in mechanical engineering. I was kind of a fish out of water, but I worked as hard as I could and you know, tried to learn as much as I could. And when I had my first review, performance appraisal, you know, I told my boss, hey, I kind of feel out of place here. And he said, he paid me the nicest compliment I'd had. He said, Mark, we didn't hire you for your ability, we hired you for your attitude. So just keep in mind, attitude is really important. And if you have that, you show the person who's hiring you that you're hungry and you're willing to learn and you're willing to do the grunt work, and you know, that's a big plus, and will carry you, you know, get you a job in the middle of a terrible recession.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Brett, on the follow-up on the virtual interviews, just follow to what the previous speaker just said. Two things: re-emphasize that you are interested in the job towards the end of the interview, and also certainly ask what they anticipate the next step being.
Definitely, yeah. Especially in a time like this, like what is their, 3-month roadmap? It should align with your own, correct? Yeah.
Well, in other words, are they normally, before the virus, they would normally presumably do a phone screen, and then the next step presumably would be an on-site interview. So in terms of next step, in terms of, what's going to be happening and what the expectation is, and, whether HR is going to get back and then get involved, or, who's going to be involved in the next step, and what that's going to consist of, is certainly important. Reinforcing the fact that you're very interested in the job.
Mm-hmm. I had thought that you meant what's the next step for the company, in this time. But
right,
yeah, what you
right.
said
That was during the discussion that hopefully would come up. Yes.
Right.
Companies don't like to hire and let go in a short period of time.
Right. I also have I have a book recommendation, if I can be so bold, during this time. It's a book that I read. I've read it twice now, but I really like it. I have it right here. It's called Never. You can't see it because I'm in space, but it's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's a book about negotiation, and it has interview tips, as tips for negotiating your own salary. It argues that every interaction in life is a negotiation on some scale. And it's written by this guy, Chris Voss, who used to be the head hostage negotiator for the FBI. So he gives all of this great information, all of this great advice on how to negotiate wisely and negotiate well. But he also sprinkles it with a lot of interesting stories about things that he went through as the head hostage negotiator. It's a pretty quick read. It's probably around it's 250 pages, and it's the tips that I learned from it I found completely invaluable. So just a tip.
Usually a lot of especially larger companies, talent acquisition are the people that find the candidates and do some initial screening, and usually that's fair amount of that's online. And then TA will hand it off to HR person to arrange do the initial screening. That's probably and if they bring it up, and salary is not something you normally would discuss on an initial interview, except if you're dealing with HR.
Mm-hmm.
Salary will come later.
So this book has, I just use salary as a example, but it has tips for any type of, as they call it, negotiation, which could mean just even your first round interview.
Right. Yeah. After you got them drooling, right?
Yeah. I guess I'll use that as a segue then for these last 8 minutes. Does anyone have any book recommendations or podcast recommendations that might be related to aerospace or the job market, or it doesn't even have to be, but just something interesting as far as a book or podcast goes that they've found in the past few weeks that has been inspiring to them?
Well, I think, podcasts are great, but I was just chatting with Navya directly. This is a unique time because every single event in the country is a Zoom or equivalent, and you can connect. If Navya's in India, then we know it's early in the morning there, and nobody knows that where she is. And I would encourage all those of you young people looking to network, just drop in, because we don't know where you are, what time zone. And instead of listening to a podcast, sign up for the various chapters and sections that are in every city in this nation, and attend their virtual events, and just introduce yourself as a student, and you'll hear it live as opposed to a podcast.
Thank you so much.
To piggyback off of that, I actually, up until now, have not been a terribly active member of AIAA. And I just reached out to Sakar and Fred on, I think, Monday or Sunday night, saying, hey, I'd love to volunteer, help do an event. Is there anything you guys need? And they were like, well, this Thursday we have a happy hour. Would you like to moderate? And so, it's possible to get thrown right in there if you volunteer.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's why no one here recognizes me, in case that was a question.
We draft easily and quickly.
Is that a virtual background?
No, I am in space.
Because I see one thing. I see these virtual backgrounds. Yours is good because it's not interrupting with your image. But is that done through the platform, or
it's through Zoom? Yeah, there's a setting in Zoom. You can select any image you want.
Okay, good to know. And
it's called a virtual background.
Yeah.
So
do you have to have a specific account, or can you do it as a guest?
Just as a guest. Just go up to the Zoom thing, go to preferences, and there's a virtual background section.
Wonderful. Hey, Ken, before we leave, what's our forum count at the end of this gathering?
I think at the peak we're about 28, 29. Right now it's 23.
Okay. All right. We would certainly appreciate having feedback on the chat room when this is over as to commentary for next time, and also how frequently we should be having these.
Fred, do you want to sing a song or something? Yeah,
everybody can wash their hands together and sing happy birthday twice.
There you go. And AIAA is also a unique society, having a free 1-year membership, which I believe was on all the invites, FYI.
Yeah, it's also on the slide right now, in the middle.
Okay.
Michelle, you haven't said anything.
Oh, you guys have been carrying on a great conversation. I don't know if I've had that much to throw in. I'll throw in one thing I wanted to a while back, just for the job search stuff is, I know it was sort of alluded to, but cannot emphasize enough how good it is to go in there prepared to ask questions yourself and not just answer questions. I know a lot of people go in there just sort of sit back and it's like, okay, what do you want to know about me? But it's really good to be prepared to go in there and show your interest in the company and ask lots of questions. I had a really bizarre job interview many years ago where I went in and they had a whole bunch of us. There were like 20 of us in the same room. And the guy came in and his wife came in and they just started talking about the company and things like that. And we're basically asking if anybody had any questions, and a few people would chime in and ask some questions. And this went on for only about 5 minutes. It was very short. And then the guy said, okay, any of you who didn't ask questions, get out. We don't even want to talk to you. And luckily I was one of the people who asked a question and I stayed and I became one of the people they hired, which was pretty cool. It was actually probably my favorite job I really ever had besides writing my book. So yeah, definitely can't emphasize that enough. Definitely go in, be prepared to know the company that you're talking to. But other than that, you had some really great suggestions from a lot of people, the internships, all these different things. And I hope that it really helps out with the people who are just starting out and going into the workforce. And on the other comment, people asking for good books and stuff, I'll put a plug out there for my book. If you want a fun book to read, the X-15 rocket plane is lots of fun. And I think it's a good lesson on what working for a great organization, a great group of people should really be like. You talk to the people in the X-15 program and they were a family. It was not work for them at all. And I hope that everybody that's out there, oh, cool. All right. Hey, Jerry, I love it. And so I hope that everybody can find a place like that. Like those guys, they got people that got sick and they wanted to be into work so bad they came in and passed it on to everybody else. So I hope nobody does that, but it's definitely the kind of thing you should strive for. So I'll just throw that out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I guess I don't have any other points to tackle. Is there anyone here that is a 2020 grad? No one. Okay, I was gonna throw congratulations out there to any of the 2020 graduates. I know that it's weird times, but never mind.
I hope they still graduate. I hope they somehow still graduate.
Yeah,
there's one.
Ceremonies are key.
There's one. Andres. There's one. Did you see the chat? Andres said he's a 2020 graduate.
I see that. Hi, Andres. Congratulations. I know that it probably feels like you were mildly robbed of your graduation ceremony, but hang in there. You're not the only one, and things will turn around. But congratulations.
Michelle, I think there's a chat for you.
Yeah, I see that.
From Barry.
Mine seems to be marked as response in private, so I'm not sure. Yeah, but I do agree with Barry. A lot of the companies do seem to be gone from those good old days, shall we say, focused on cash flow and everything. And unfortunately, that is true to a great extent. But I still think there are some really good companies out there. And it's just a matter of finding the right ones, networking with other people, saying, hey, do you work for a good company or not? That's a great way to know whether there's a company out there that you want to go after. So that's definitely worth looking into too. Talking to other people about where they've worked, where they don't want to work is a good way to look at this as well.
Okay. Well, guys, great. That's our hour and a half. That's 7:30 now. So unless anyone has any final thoughts, I'll just mention one more time the town hall on Saturday at from 10 till whenever it's over. Anything else, Fred or Ken or Sakar, Moises?
Feedback in the chat room, please, which hopefully Ken will collect and send out to his organizers. But Brett, you did a great job. You're hired.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks for organizing this, Ken.
Oh, great job, Brett. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
all.
Ken.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
There we go.
Yeah, I tried a Yosemite background, but now I'm like a Yosemite ghost. I have to read up on how to do this. You need a green screen.
Green screen.
Oh. How do you do your background?
Oh, you go to the video. You should see the video sign and click the arrow.
I know. I found, like, I downloaded like a Yosemite desktop photo, but how do you make it so your face still shows up?
Well, I think that depends on the room light.
Okay.
Yeah, I have been playing around it, but Brad was saying maybe if you the depth of your background is longer or deeper, then your face show up easier. You have to play around your room, play around the light of your room. Then you will find an optimized position.
All right.
I have the same issue.
Okay, I'll play around with it.
Yeah, with
Thank
the
you.
light. Yeah.
Interesting effect.
Yeah, it could be fun like this. I feel like that Chevy Chase movie, right?
Yeah.
You can see my shirt, but
yeah, we're supposed to have some fun, in this event, to cheer people up, drinking wine, coffee, e-coffee, e-wine.
Yeah.
Everything was e. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Oh, well, stay in touch. Join us anytime.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
We could play some fun event with you. E-event with you.
I love it. Yeah, I actually have a AIAA chapter in Pittsburgh, or actually outside Pittsburgh, that wants me to do my X15 talk virtually. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
I see. We can do that too. Yeah, Pittsburgh is good. I was there for a few years. It's pretty good.
Cool.
Actually, my membership start there. AIAA membership start there. But then keep moving and
Yeah.
But interesting, how did they? Oh, that's great. Yeah, I see. At least you don't have to travel right now.
Yeah. That's a good thing right now. Yes.
Yeah. I'm checking if we can do some, like movie or something, or another, talk with you, by you, that would be great.
Sounds good.
Well, you can also show us your great collection. That's a great thing. Just move the camera a little bit or something like that.
Oh yeah, there's some interesting things here.
Yeah, that will cheer people up.
There you go. Yeah, I'll just hold my portfolio here in front of the screen. Yeah.
That's right. You see, you see, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Everybody stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully we'll get a chance to get together again.
Yeah. Anytime. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ken.
Oh, great pleasure.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.